Good morning, everybody. We're coming to you live this morning from the studios in Rivonia, from my house and from Lebang's house, and most especially from wherever you are this morning. That's what's happening. That's where it all goes down. And it is live. It is 6 o'clock. It is the first day of a brand new month and a brand new season. And we're heading into the best time of year. Very exciting stuff. Let's do this. Let's join hands and stand in a circle and like hop and skip and jump, ring a roses. All right, what's happening, peoples? By the way, Mbulelo and Lebang are stars of the show this morning. What's going down, peoples? What's happening?
I don't know if it's me, but is this like the spring day vibe that we get every year, or is there something not in the air this time around?
Well, I mean, ask Mbulelo. He was going on about spring day yesterday and the day before, actually. So,
yeah.
I mean, is it everything you wanted it to be, Mbulelo?
Well, like I told you, people are ready. I
just started. I mean, give it a chance.
This weekend, plus there's no Premier League this weekend, so it's excellent. Everyone with a pool. I've got 2 dream invites for this weekend. I will certainly be spending Saturday around an incredible pool with a below-the-ground jacuzzi. Cannot wait.
Ooh.
Cannot wait.
Ooh.
That sounds nice. What a below-the-ground jacuzzi.
Yeah.
Who are your friends?
No, above ground, common. I'm not coming to.
Sorry. I see what you. Yes,
we've been here. We've been here.
Yeah, you've been over this territory with us before.
No laughter is where I'm going this weekend.
So you don't mind a jacuzzi? It's just that if it's below the ground, it's acceptable. If it's above the ground, it's not.
Yeah, no, that we're not in university anymore. Like if I'm coming to your house and you have a jacuzzi, let's do it properly. You own the house. We're not coming there to wreck your house. We're coming there to have a good time. You intend to live here. Yeah.
Wow, you are something else. All right. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, all I can say is that I was in. Yesterday was a crazy day. We did the show, and then I went through to the office. We had a really big presentation to one of our clients for an hour. Then I went and did. I don't want to spoil this by letting the cat out of the bag. Lebang was there too, but we did a pretty big interview with a really significant person.
Yeah.
Who's a important person.
A powerhouse.
And absolutely. And even though I'm going to say I don't want to give anything away because we're going to do a big launch for this, but even though they didn't make a big fuss of themselves, and they never have, they're a pretty big deal. Big deal family, big deal relationships, big deal personal contribution to the world. These are the kinds of interviews that I love to do, and they don't come along all that often, but we had a big one to get done. Then I went to lunch with my business partner because we had to spend some time catching up on all the stuff. Because, with not going to the office every day, and I don't know if you're back to 100% normality in your business or what you're up to, we don't see each other as much, so we don't actually sit and catch up on the little things. We make sure that we're on top of the big things, but you don't actually sit down with someone and find out about what's going on in their family. And, even though we've got the top line stuff kind of seen to, it's really important to actually just spend a little bit of that glue time, as she calls it. And I think what she means is between the bricks, you got the concrete, you got the glue. That's what holds it all together. And if you don't make time for that stuff, you're always talking about business and you don't really connect properly. So that was a really brilliant way to spend the day. And then I came back home, and of all the things I had to do last night, I had to sit in a homeowners AGM, but luckily it was a virtual one. So, I could eat my supper while the meeting was going on. And I mean, I listened to my own, I couldn't believe it. I was in disbelief that I'd actually sat through the whole thing, but I listened to it, and it was quicker. Because you didn't have all those people, excuse me, I just want to raise a point of order or whatever. There's always those people in a meeting. It's like Parliament. So it actually went pretty well. And I think we should always do our meetings this way. You'd have more people attend. They vote quickly because you vote in this online system. It was actually pretty awesome. I've never seen one of these before, and I thought I'd seen it all. I thought I'd seen Microsoft Teams, Zoom, Google Meets, what are all the others? All the thousands of apps that you get. This was a new one where you actually could vote on the system as well. Now, I mean, if we did that for Parliament, these guys could be paid half of what they get paid. They wouldn't have to dress up. They wouldn't have to fall asleep. We wouldn't know if they were falling asleep because you wouldn't always have the camera on them. And they could just take part and do the things they needed to do. As you've often said, Bulelo, like efficient and bureaucratic rather than like just attention-seeking and political. So I did that. And then I got some pretty awful news about a friend of mine after the meeting. And I thought, this is all I need, like the last sort of thing to kill the day. But it was a busy day. And I woke up this morning, I'm like, wow, I hope I have a day like that today. Because I like being busy. I don't like the bad news part of it or the homeowners association meeting. I can do without that. But it's nice to be busy. It feels good to be busy. I hate this malaise that so many people have sunk into, where they do half of what they did before. It's nice to be like really, really chock full on a day like that, and to finish August with a lot on the plate,
and to finish strong as well. Like since we've been back at home or working from home and only really coming into the office here and there, it's difficult to really get into that work mode 24/7. But ironically, when you get so much more done at home, it just feels like I'm definitely accomplishing something. Whereas I don't know, but when I'm in the office now, it just feels like a bit of a turn up. Like I can't just sit and be like, boom, I'm working. There's so much going on because we're so excited to be around people that we kind of forget to work sometimes. But when you're at home, you're working. When you've got appointments, you're out there, you're busy, you're doing what you need to do. Same thing, Gareth. Yesterday I got home and I was like, phew, I literally got back at like 10 p.m. It was a chock-a-block day, but it felt so good. I was like, yes, these are the kinds of days I want to wake up for. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I think you agree with this, Mbulelo. Obviously, you're a high output kind of guy.
Eudaimonia is a very douchebaggy term for what you're talking about there. It's not like exhausted. It's like you feel so accomplished. There's a different type of exhausted, and eudaimonia is when you've not only do you put it all in, but you feel that sense of accomplishment internally without somebody going, "Oh, you're brilliant." Eudaimonia.
And there's something about going to sleep, falling asleep immediately because you've done a lot and you actually need the sleep. And there's none of that like, you lie in bed for an hour and scroll through social media, or let me turn on the TV and watch some bullshit. You just fall asleep because you're busy and you're tired and you've had a crazy day and you need the sleep. And you sleep properly, man. You sleep hard. You go straight to sleep. No messing around.
Unless you've got a kid who decides that you're not getting any sleep at all. Like I'm literally running on like 3 hours. I thought I had this on lock because I took my daughters to my mom's place yesterday. So they were running around all day, literally living their best lives. By the time I fetched them, they were tired, like gack tired. So I'm like, score, get home, put them in the bath, put them in the bed, and they're out. That was the plan. And then I went to bed eventually. And I kid you not, at like 2 a.m., my one daughter's like, knock, knock, wakey, wakey, lady. I need some entertainment because she had slept, earlier than she usually does. Oh, no. Guys, last night was a battle between me and her. I realized that I serve her. I am her servant. Whatever she wants, she gets.
You're a servant. Yeah.
I mean, it's funny you say that. It's funny you say that. One of our clients, incredibly dynamic guy, he's one of my favorites. He's here every Tuesday. And
Yaku.
It's an electric factory when he comes in here. And he was yesterday saying he has made it clear to his father and his family that they work for him. They chose to have him. And the way he describes it is exactly what you're saying now, is your daughter starts to figure out, you work for me, and this employment contract is at the very least for the rest of your life.
Pretty much. Like, you made your bed, now sleep in it. Like, that's it.
Oof. Or don't sleep in it.
I could sleep in it.
Yeah. Let's not say a servant. You're not the servant to your daughter here in this case, but you are in service to her, whether you like it or not.
Forever, ever.
Because I mean, any good healthy relationship means you're the authority figure in the parent-child situation, but you are in service whether you like it or not.
Thank you for fluffing it up for me. That's what I'll call it from now on. But we know what it is.
I know. It just sounds it sounds a little more kosher when you say it that way.
Yeah.
Anyway, so with this VIP that we interviewed yesterday, I actually meant to ask if they could do a photograph with you, Lebang, and I was saying to Rena at lunch, damn, I should have asked, because she said, yes, you should have.
I wanted to ask.
You were so polite, and I thought, I'm sure that Lebang wants a picture. And I wish I could just draw one. We'll pick up again, so don't worry. We'll definitely do something again. But I suddenly thought leaving there, I was like, there's something we forgot to do here yesterday, because it's a nice thing to, you seemed a little bit like you were very relaxed and very composed, but I could tell that you were also a little bit starstruck.
A little bit, bro. It was so obvious. I was like halfway shaking off the time. Like when I had to Michael, I was like, can I please? And then while we were sitting there, and she was talking to us, and I was just looking at this woman and the wonders that were coming out of her mouth. I'm like, how am I gonna get a picture out of this? I'm like, maybe it's gonna be a bit unprofessional because we're obviously here for work. Am I gonna come off as a groupie, or should I just I don't know. I don't know what to do. I really wanted a picture. I was like, I want to go home and show my mom. But then I was like, what, let me just hold back, because being starstruck is just it's hard because you kind of freeze up. I got guababa. There's a thing called guababa. Where you just
guababa.
Yes, where you don't know what to say. You just but I want to, and you just don't know. I was just like, you know what, man, I'm just gonna let this slide. The day will come again, and then I'll take the picture. I really wanted one.
No, it will come again, but I felt really bad when we were sitting talking about it, and I suddenly thought this would have been a nice thing, because also you don't ask, you don't get, and there's no way they would have said no. In fact,
obviously,
I remember the first person who told me, if you don't ask, you don't get, is somebody who has really done well in life. He's got lots and lots of money. He's got a really, really amazing career, achievements. The CV's as long as, from here to the end of the 100-meter racetrack. He's just a winner in every way. And I thought, when it came from him, I was like, this guy knows what he's talking about. Write that down in the inside of your skull and just keep an eye. Because if you don't ask, you don't get. It sounds so obvious. Most people don't get what they want in life because they don't ask for things.
That's true.
And I'm not saying in terms of just people. If you meet people and you want an autograph, or you meet people and you want to pitch them a business idea, of course that's the most literal way to interpret if you don't ask, you don't get. But there's also something else. There's another way to do it. It is to remember that what you put out into the universe is what you're going to get back. So if you wander through life and you don't have a list of short-term and medium-term and long-term goals, and I know this is getting into the territory that motivational speakers usually occupy, so I'm careful when I go here, but if you are wandering through life and you don't really know what it is that you want, but you're unhappy, nothing's going to improve. I'll never forget when my brother got back he did a sabbatical in the US, and he was working in Florida, and he had a really good time while he was there. He's in Miami, and he just loved it. And he got back to South Africa, and he was, for about 9 months, he struggled to find a job. And it wasn't because there weren't a lot of people who would have hired him, or that he didn't have the qualifications, or that there weren't jobs available. It was that he didn't know what job he wanted. And if you don't put it out there, if you don't ask, then you don't get. Because unless you have a list of, these are the things I want from a job. I want it to be stimulating. I want to be challenged every day. I want to do something that I enjoy doing, that I'm good at. I want to work with people who are smarter than me. I want to be able to take 2 holidays a year or 3 holidays a year or whatever. If you don't write those things down and start to condition your mind to pick up on what the things are that you're looking for, then either everything that comes your way is going to be bad, or nothing that comes your way is going to be good. And then you only have yourself to blame. So I see a lot of people with self-inflicted problems in their lives, and pain and unhappiness and misery and, just a general kind of dissatisfaction with being alive. And I often, not always the case, there's some people who just really have bad luck, or they're just those people who, for whatever reason, things just never seem to work out for them properly, no matter how much effort they put into it. There are those people. I don't know what their lesson is to learn. I'm not sure what they're here for on earth, because it must be frustrating as hell. And I wouldn't last very long in that kind of situation. But a lot of it is self-inflicted. And if you're just wandering blind through life, hoping good things happen to you, that's a fool's errand. That's a
vision boards.
Yeah, I mean, it is, I suppose, and again, I don't want to stray into the territory that motivational speakers occupy, because they're better at that than me. And in some ways, they're more irritating than I could ever try to be. But I will say that, but you have to have a plan. If you don't have a plan, nothing's going to make sense. If you don't have a roadmap, anywhere you end up is a good enough destination.
So listen, it's important to know what level you want to play at, right? And it's not just about money. If you want your life to be of quality, you must have goals. It's non-negotiable. Now, you can go around bumbling about and maybe 1% have it good, but it's so interesting that you're saying this. So last weekend, the kindest person I know, we've been friends for 29 years now. And so she's a high-end lawyer, works in mining, and she is a dynamo. They know when she walks in there, stuff happens across the continent. But in her personal life, she's unable to do exactly what you said. And we're polar opposites, right? So she wants to be nice to everyone and do everything for everyone, where I'm like, I'll do what I want. And, so we do complement each other quite well. And I had to have a hard word with her. And I said, listen here, let me tell you something. What you need to understand is, when you do goals for yourself, is everybody's brilliant at telling you what they want. I want this, I want that, I want that. But what goals actually do, just for my personal experience, is the most difficult thing in the world for people is to hear the word no. But the other thing it does for you is that it tells you what you will not accept. Because everybody's brilliant at, I know what I want. Like we were practicing. But you must know what you will not. It is not, boundaries is what Dr. Hanan called it. But there has to be clear lines what you will not accept. Quality of people, quality of food, lack of it, whatever it may be. You need to be clear about that. So,
I know you're not making that up, because I tease you a lot about it. But for example, you won't drink a cup of re-coffee. God bless them. I'm not going at re-coffee here. But if I put that in front of you, you would rather not have coffee that day than drink that stuff. And
but that's not coffee.
No, I know. Mbolelo will say many worse things about it, but one of these days maybe they're paying us for advertising. I don't want to nail them, but the fact is that no matter how much they pay to be on the show, Mbolelo will never drink this stuff, and I know that for a fact. So he has certain lines you can't cross, and even though you sometimes sound a bit douchey about these things, at least we know with you that when you really do like something, you're not bullshitting, and when you don't like something, then there's no wiggle room here with you. In some ways, it's easier to work with someone like you.
Yeah.
And I suppose it must be frustrating to some people, but I kind of like it, because you know where the lines are. And there's none of that like peer pressure stuff. Like, there's this one friend of mine who's, God bless him, he's always trying to like persuade me that this is a good thing to do, or that that's a more interesting way to approach things. And I have to keep reiterating to him, like, I'm not really in any way susceptible to peer pressure. Like, it just doesn't happen in my life. No one ever persuaded me to smoke or drink or do any of the things that supposedly would have made me cooler at high school. I knew I wasn't very cool at high school, but I liked me a lot more than I liked being cool. And Bolelo's a bit like that too. That's a rare thing to have instilled in you, and if you have it, great for you.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not gonna make everyone else happy all the time, but you'll be happy.
And that's all that matters.
To make people happy. I wish more people could hear this. It is not your job. It's why I hate when people go, find somebody who completes you. it is not your job to make other people
No.
happy. It is everyone's job to make themselves happy. But sorry,
Yes.
Lebang, I cut you off there.
No,
Sorry, I
I
just
was
wanted
just
to say.
saying, yeah, sorry,
Go
go
ahead.
first.
No,
Okay.
go ahead.
I was saying, like, a lot of times people like you are easily misunderstood because you don't automatically come across as, the easy to talk to, I'm here to make everybody happy kind of person. And isn't, to a certain extent, isn't it just easier to know yourself so much, because then you know what you don't want, you know what you're not willing to tolerate. And I just think that's it's a nice outlook on life, even though it's easily misunderstood. You don't care about how it's misunderstood because you know who you are and you're just happy to move with it. And it's refreshing. I always say to people that, I like AKA because he's very clearly a douchebag. He's been consistently an asshole, and he hasn't changed his stance on that for the 15 years that he's been making music.
Yeah.
And we can't be mad at him because he knows who he is. He's been clear about that. He hasn't switched up on us. Whereas, other people as an artist, you want to obviously make everyone happy.
I mean, everyone's talking about Kanye West and Donda now, right? And that's the same sort of thing. Like if you're a Kanye West fan, you'll put up with whatever bullshit he throws at you. But if you
100%.
if you don't like him, there's no song that he could write that's going to win you over. I almost feel like there's an authenticity to that which costs you a lot of money. It costs you social points, certainly. This is where Mbulelo's thing about being liked comes into it. And remember, Mbulelo, it's easy for you to say it's not your job to make people like you, or it's not your job to become popular because it's not up to you. But the reality is so many people just crave that every day. Hey, they wake up and they go, I just wish people loved me. You cannot be. This is your choice in life, one of the many. I'm not going to lay this down as number one. But you have this, every one of us have this choice in our direct path, no matter what age you are, no matter what kind of a life you lead, no matter who's important to you and who isn't, what you have and what you don't have. This is one of the most fundamental choices you have. Either you can be a people pleaser and you can try to make yourself popular with other people, and you can try to make yourself one of those people who everybody likes. Or you can be authentic, but you cannot be both. There are very few people. If you are, then it's by fluke. It's like, you lucked out. Like the stars aligned, because the things that make you authentic are also the things that people like. Very rare situation, because most people they're not like that.
You've nailed it. And I wish I could take all the credit, because I do like taking credit for stuff I do. But I was raised. But I was raised by a father who was obsessed with quality, right? And my father has like he's a very simple guy. So chemical engineer, very, very simple. He doesn't like fluff and all of that. He's very simple. He always used to say to us is, I don't like to make a lot of rules, right? What I do is I make few rules, quality rules. It's all about the quality of what the rules are, because he says, and this is why it's important to write things down and have what my father calls core principles. I'm not interested in how I make you feel. Am I acting to my family's core principles? That's always what I go back to, and I'm not perfect. Nobody's perfect, but I always revert back to my. So I'm not looking for affirmation from the outside. And I you know what you're saying, Gareth, is so close to my heart, because my friend's going through this, and I always say to her, what are your core principles? And I asked her, just write down 5 core principles that are important to you. And it's been sort of 6 weeks.
I hate
she
that
hasn't
stuff.
come back to me.
I mean, it's like, everybody has this experience too. And I know we're being very philosophical this morning. Ruth says, wow, you guys are so philosophical. I love it. Well, I'm glad you do, Ruth. I hope everybody else does. But at least none of us are sitting here this morning talking bullshit to each other. I would hate us to be sitting here just going on about our favorite colors for 6 hours. That would be the most horrible thing we could do to you. And I don't think you'd stick around for it if you listen to the show. But this whole thing about core principles makes me think of something else. I started this conference that we had yesterday with a client of ours, because when people introduce you as a speaker at these things, they have to have a biography, right? And that's bad enough, because that's someone else describing you. And at least if they don't hit all the spots and you don't feel great about that intro, it's how someone else sees you, so you accept it for whatever it's worth. But everyone has to write their own biography on social media these days. I mean, you have to have a Twitter bio, right? You have to have an Instagram bio. You have to have some kind of description of yourself that exists on the internet. If you have a Wikipedia page, then that's something someone else has decided to write about you. And that's hard. Like, just writing your own bio is so hard. Some people try to make it funny. Like, I've never really written a serious bio, whether it's long or short, for myself. I can't take myself seriously enough. But for some people, that's a really difficult task. And when Bulelo says, write down your core principles, geez, that is difficult stuff, man. Like,
it's
for many
almost
of us,
like you're doing some sort of self-introspection. It's too much.
Yeah, we're still working that out.
Exactly.
It's hard. Bulelo, that's hard, man. Like, what do you think yours are? I mean, you seem to have worked it out. I don't know what mine are.
Sensei.
No, I have not worked it out, and I'm constantly speaking to wiser people. But I mean, I'm not going to bore you with the full list of 5. But my number one core principle, because I just want to say as well, you know who needs it more and more is the more competent you are, the more you actually need core principles. Is because I know what type of person I am in my 20s. No. I do have an ego, so I need to manage myself more. Like, again, it's not about the other people. Is you know, when you start to feel yourself, is in my 20s I went away from my family's principles, and I was a delinquent, an absolute mess of a human being, and a terror for society, and I was the problem. And you know, so for me, my number one core principle, right, number one, is non-negotiable wherever I go, I don't care about being the smartest person there, but I will be the hardest working person there. Like, that is always my core principle. It doesn't matter where I go. And over the last 6 years, I'm proud to say, every space I've been in, I believe I've been the hardest working person there, whether true or not, to my standard. So that is my number one core principle. I mean, I've got a few others, but these things are so important. And I just wanted to finish off on where my thinking comes from. Is my father used to say, not too many rules, because if you have too many rules, the problem is you have to stick to them. Yeah. That's the problem with too many rules, and then you lose quality. With quantity, you lose quality. So it's tricky. I'm always talking to wise people. I have people that I call mentors. So and they keep asking me for this stuff. One in particular, who's known me since I was in the testicle. You know, he keeps pushing me for this kind of stuff. I was in my father's testicles.
On a totally unrelated but still motivational note, Snae Zulu says, "Morning, guys. I need a dose of Lebang's positive energy right now. I got scammed out of 2,500 rand a few days ago, and I just missed my 6 a.m. flight this morning. I'm happy to listen live. So, Lebang, any advice for Snae?"
Snae, first of all, I'm so sorry. That can't be easy. But on the bright side, it's spring apparently. It's the 1st of September. Secondly, that 2.5, Lord knows what you're going to do with it. It's gone. Just get it out. You're going to make triple that in the near future. Everything happens for a reason. If you got on that 6 a.m. flight, Lord knows what would have thank you, Gareth. Lord knows what would have happened if you had got on that flight. Maybe you would have gotten to your destination and got into the wrong taxi. Everything happens for a reason. So be still, be with where you are and what you've experienced, because you need this information now, so that in the future you can look back and say, I'm glad I got scammed at 2.5 so that I don't get scammed at 7.5 or that 27.5 in the future.
Right.
And you'll be fine, girl. Just brush it off and keep it moving. You got this. You got this.
Nice. You see, you're good at this stuff. We're going to make you do this once a week, I think.
Yeah, you guys should. You should.
I got an email yesterday after we had Michael Flax on yesterday on the show, and this is from Bronwyn. She says, "I loved the email from Adele regarding Michael Flax. I just had to put it out there. The doom and gloom Mbulelo is my favorite." Okay, so you see, Mbulelo, it's not just people who they like your realism and your pragmatism and your cynicism. Calls a spade, and his no bullshit approach is so refreshing in a world full of Kardashians. You rock, Mbulelo. And Mbulelo, another request from Bronwyn to get your mother on the show, please. She sounds like one hell of a lady. Well, we've heard she's never going to do it, but
she's a fire.
You know, there's some people who just will not. Trust me, I've tried. There are a couple of people who I've thought, wow, this person would be so interesting to have on the show. Just no interest at all. And I mean, it might even be the same kind of person that we're talking about here. Like Jamie, who says, I don't write or do anything for social media or for the public. It's a good way to tell if someone really knows you. I've never been on LinkedIn or Facebook for that matter. Well, we're honored to have you on here, JV, because it sounds like you're very choosy about where you put yourself. So that's good. Okay, we got to get to some headlines. Let's take a quick look at what's going on in the world this morning, just to keep us on top of things. So first of all, Jacob Zuma has refused examination by the NPA's medical team. This guy is just not cooperating. He's like a hippopotamus or a rhinoceros that's wallowing in the water or stuck in a corner, and he's just not budging. And we're not going to get anything we want out of him. And I think that the court proceedings must just continue without him then. When you make yourself an obstacle, and really, I don't care if Jacob Zuma is well or not. I don't care if he's personally in attendance or not. It's not the NPA's job to do more than is humanly possible to get someone to cooperate. They must just move ahead now. And if that means that he spends more time in jail for contempt of court because he refuses to budge, tough. Time is up. If he's not going to meet us halfway as someone who presided over a collapse in our state and who willfully engineered a collapse in our state in some ways, then I think a lot of people's patience with this guy is just running out. And I don't think I'm the only one who's thinking of saying that at the moment. Just who cares? Like, now we've got to move on without you. Right?
Weren't they asking for donations like 2 minutes ago?
Oh, yeah.
For his legal. Mm-hmm. Come on, bro. Come on,
so
bro.
It's fine for him to ask for money, which he seems really good at, and he seems to run out of money really well because he's very poor at managing it. But when we need him to do something remember, this is not Cyril Ramaphosa's justice machine, and it's not a certain part of the electorate's justice machine or the ANC's justice machine. This is the people of South Africa who are represented by our legal system. And our legal system has courts, and those courts, if we don't all agree that we're going to comply with the rules of a court, then we have no place living in a lawful society. And this guy is being objectionable and obfuscatory. And it's time for him to now pay a price for that by being declared unnecessary, deemed unnecessary as a present human being in his own trial. Let's just move ahead without him, and we can try him in absentia. They've done this before; it wouldn't be the first time. Yeah. We can't keep on massaging this guy just to get one or two little concessions out of him. And if he's got so much, so many secrets, so many Smolanyana skeletons, bring it then. How about, we're calling you on your promises now. There's no more time for you to hide away with your cards. Like, lay it out there. We've called you on it. Show your cards. Otherwise, shut up. No one cares. Basit Sana saying it's the same guy who asks for donations. Hi, Footsec.
Hi.
Yeah, so there we go. Lots of that stuff going on. Absolutely. So that's the first story in the news. The DA has called on the presidency to release the outcome of Kusela Diko's disciplinary process. And of course, she was the woman who was the president's spokesperson for some time. And we're trying to figure out exactly what happened there, because the president's spokesperson was implicated in a whole fraud and corruption situation with tenders around PPE for coronavirus. And they're not telling us what actually happened. They haven't given us the outcome of the disciplinary process. So what's the point then of having a disciplinary process if you can't tell the public what happened in the process? It's not good enough for you to say, well, we've had a process. Like, you owe us an explanation, just like Jacob Zuma owes the court an explanation. So again, do your job.
You know the ANC script. We will further go internal investigations once we have decided, once we have exercised and indeed exhausted all of the options of the African National Congress. We will revert to the nation, black, blue, pink, and South Africa will once again be Nelson Mandela's South Africa. I mean, these clowns.
I don't know if you ever watched the horror movie Candyman. The idea with Candyman, if you ever saw it, was that you say Candyman, like I think it's 5 times, and then the Candyman appears and murders you.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
this is Lesilo. Remember, Lesilo. Same thing. I remember that.
Look at y'all.
Yeah. I was obsessed with that show when I was a kid.
I was terrified. Yo.
But what a dumb premise, really, for horror, because even though they've re-released it, apparently the Candyman director has just made history by becoming the first black woman to have a film open at #1 in the North American box office chart. And what they've done is they've redone the original from so many years ago. The dumb idea, the thing I can't get about this movie is, if saying Candyman 5 times is what's going to make this person, this monster, this creature appear and murder you, then the premise of the movie is just don't say Candyman 5 times. Stop at 3 and boom, we don't have a movie. There's no horror, right? Sounds so obvious. Just don't say it. People can't help themselves. I suppose that's what you learn about these things. Anyway, apparently,
human beings better than that.
Yeah. So A Quiet Place Part 2 was another scary success story. They made more than half of their 296 million worldwide haul from North American audiences. It seems like people are into horrors at the moment in a big way. Candyman also bucked a recent trend by launching only in cinemas without a simultaneous release on streaming. Interesting. I think people maybe like the idea of a cinema now. Especially now that they're starting to open up again and it's an outing and you go there with your popcorn and, maybe that's part of the success here. And Paw Patrol, the movie, I know that you're a mom, so Lebang, you know about Paw Patrol. The movie Paw Patrol dropped down a place, making $6.6 million in its second weekend in North American box office.
Sure. Are we in the right careers here, hey? Should we be into filmmaking or what?
Clearly not. And then, Banksy is that famous artist who, does the urban art and, wherever Banksy leaves something scrawled on a wall that sells for millions. Well, apparently fake Banksy art was sold through the website for £244,000. And it was sold by NFT, non-fungible token. And the auction ended after a man offered 90% more than his rival bidders. Banksy's team told the BBC, any Banksy NFT auctions are not affiliated with the artist in any shape or form, because it turns out that this whole thing was a scam. So Snae, who got ripped off this morning for 2,500 Rand, thank your lucky stars that it's not 250,000 pounds. Can you imagine losing that on a work of art that you don't even get? You never received the art because it doesn't exist. So the Banksy people are really upset because they're like, well, we didn't put this art on auction. You shouldn't trust things on the internet, but it makes them look bad anyway, right?
And by the way, that's a next level scam, because I don't know if you know what NFTs are, but the NFTs are just like an image. It's a digital.
Correct.
That's wild.
Correct. But art, I mean,
also,
that's a whole other
who has
world.
that kind of money to spend on an NFT? If you have that kind of money to spend on an NFT, then you don't mind being scammed that much. You'll just get another one, is the point. It's just like, I'm on my yacht, smoking my cigar, watching somebody shake their ass in a thong, and I'm on my phone buying a fake NFT. I'll just get another one.
Yeah, right.
Although, having said that, I like that the person's, because it is turns out buns out, by the way. So I did like the thong thing that you said there. But having said that, and I don't know what it's like in your lives, but for me, the people with the most money that I know are actually the people who would care. They are the people where 10 Rand is still 10 Rand. It's us who pretend to have money where it's like, I need that. But the rich people are like, hey, $10 still $10. I want my money back. I'll come to your house for that.
Right. Yeah. Don't give thieves their money. Yes. Make sure you get that back. It's not theirs. Get it back. Get it. All right. So those are some of the headlines you need this morning. That's what you need to know. Bulelo has a funny question for us this morning, and I tried to apply my mind to this last night because I wanted to have an answer, prepared. But have you ever met a black person called Gary? But this is not a common black name. In fact, I don't know one black guy called Gary. There's Gary Coleman, who was the star of that show in the US, but I don't know if he was was he black or was he a person of color? Because there's I don't know. Your question, it seems like a racist question if you don't know what Bulelo's talking about here, but there are some names that are just not very common in the black community, no matter where you are in the world. And I'm struggling to come up with one who's called Gary. That's a good example.
It caused a lot of contention yesterday in the office, just to be clear. I was talking to Dori, who works with us, fantastic human. Yes. And she said, because I was saying, hey, what is the whitest name in the world? And she said, Gary. Dori she was so ready. I've never met a black Gary. I then proceeded to text 6 of my black friends. Black, none of that.
What? Black?
Person of color. No, because there's people of color and there's black people. All right, let's not get offended tonight.
Yeah.
Anyway, all 6 of them came back to me, and I'm talking dynamic people, man. They not
broad
one
range.
knew a Gary. Not one knew a Gary. Not one like in the family. Yeah, so Gary may very well be the whitest name in the world. So just so you know, if you're a black Gary and you're listening, give us a shout out.
I think the whitest name in the world is like Susie. Like Susie, it just screams white. Susie.
But don't you know?
You can't even say
Susan.
Susie. Yeah, Susan.
You get it, Susan.
That's not Susan.
Yeah.
That's not Susan. If you know what I'm saying.
Okay, I see
like Susie. It's giving me
Susan.
Karen vibes. I can only see the hairstyle and the.
But say it again. Say Susan again, as black as you can.
Susan.
That I can hear, yeah.
But
I can't hear
Susan. I
can't hear Susie because it could also be because close to Susie is Sousa, and nobody wants to be called that. No one wants to be called that.
It's not even 7 a.m., Gareth.
No. Sousa.
No. Yeah. No, Susie is close. That's close, like you have to have gone to St. Anne's and you have to have done like a sabbatical on a yoga course. That is about as white as it gets.
I went to primary school with a white girl named Tandi, and she was like the talk of the town for the full 7 years I was in school with her. And I don't think that's a thing anymore. Now it's oh, this is my friend Tandi, and it's okay, cool. This is my white friend Palisa. If you go to TikTok, and I'm glad because Heritage Day is coming up, I'd like to do a thing on this. You'll see how many young teenage white chicks are out here Sanbona Ninjani, Ikamamu Palisa. And I love that. I think that's where we should be going in. We shouldn't be stopping to celebrate that kind of thing anymore. It's Gareth, we can nickname you Temba.
No, listen, I remember I went public with the fact that if I've figured out the names of if I have 6 girls and 6 boys, which is highly unlikely, but I've already worked out what their names will be. This is not the kind of situation where the mother gets any say at all. And I remember saying on the show, must have been 12 years ago, you can dig up the tapes. I was like, yeah. Each of my kids is also getting a black name. And then, some people were like, oh, you're trying too hard, because that sounds like the sort of thing that a white liberal would do to just impress dumb people. Because it's you get, but I think it's good because I like to see a little bit of where you're from in your name. So, you can give people, you can give your kid, you can give them 12 names if you want to, each kid. And for me, it would be a part of where they're from, and it must describe something. And there's some beautiful names that I've often encountered and thought that's a name I would want to give to a kid of mine. So for me, it was part of it. Tracy says, I've never come across a white Mavis or Gladys. No, I had a grandmother called Mavis. So that's a white name as well as it is black.
Mavis
now, having said that,
white.
Can black people, let's quickly have a conversation. Can we stop with Innocentia and Primrose?
Primrose.
We're not doing it anymore.
And
I second that. I actually second that. I think it's time we just move out of that. But also, I think at the time where that became a thing, it wasn't out of choice. I don't know if we really had a choice, or it was, because of the environment at the time. Now, I think let's just push the envelope and really just get into naming our kids what we really want to. And as Gareth is saying, the environment or where they're from or the rich culture that we have. Like, let's use that. I'm proud to say I'm the only child out of my parents who does not have a white name. I am Lebang, I am Umpile, I am Tulakanyo. That's it. My brothers are like Paul and Moses, and I sit there and I laugh at them every chance I can get.
You got a superiority complex because of that, I can tell. All right. We do have to break from the stupidity of all of these names, but Mbulelo, to your point, there are a few answers about this Gary situation. Somebody says Gary Clark Jr. is a very famous musician, and he's black. He black. Somebody came up with another one, but I think there are probably, there are exceptions to every rule. It doesn't mean that that the rule doesn't apply. And all these names honestly annoy the breath out of me. Says Orapele, Nahana Innocentia ka 2021.
Innocentia, come on now.
Sindile says fortunate. We need some white petunias. That's a good one.
And they probably are there, but they're mad old.
Yeah, also the other problem with even having these discussions these days is that the PC people get involved and they're like, you shouldn't even be talking about this. Well, if you're going to complain about any of that on this show, you're in the wrong place because we don't care.
And also to you PC people, you shouldn't be talking to me. Get the hell out of my face immediately. That's what I'm saying as they say that, Gareth. I'm totally.
All right. Let's turn our attention to Sean Sanders. We mentioned NFTs, among other things, during the discussion around the Banksy art. And NFTs have been a very big subject of conversation in the world of cryptocurrency. But we're going to talk to Sean generally, and then we'll get into some specifics just now. He is the co-founder of Revix.com. Hey, Sean, how's it going, dude?
Morning, Gareth. Morning, guys. Yeah, good. How are you doing?
Awesome. Very good. Not a bad week in cryptocurrency. Some exciting developments. And as usual, certain altcoins running ahead and becoming some very nice 10x returns for some of the people who hold them, right? There's some exciting stuff going down.
No, there is. Solana, which is, we're talking about weird names. I think Solana will be a new name on the show as well. But Solana's up 220% over the last month. And another Ethereum killer, and I'll talk about what Ethereum killer would be in just a moment, Cardano, which we launched last week, is up 103% over the last 30 days. So it's been a good time in crypto. I mean, Bitcoin's hovering around that 48,000 mark. I think it's about $47,200 right now. I mean, it broke above $50,000 this last week. So, I mean, it's very bullish in the crypto space. And if we're looking at these Ethereum killers, because, you talk about Cardano, you talk about Solana, these are the cryptocurrencies that are found in our smart contract bundle. So just a bit of reference here, our smart contract bundle essentially gives you exposure to these Ethereum killers. It's cryptocurrencies that provide the blockchain infrastructure that you can then have NFTs that sit on top of, or applications and all the rest. And the reason why these are actually doing so well at the moment is that Ethereum sucks, to be honest. I mean, I sent a transaction yesterday to a smart contract on Ethereum, which sounds fancy. It's not. It's really just a case of, I click buy something using a decentralized app on the Ethereum network. Again, some more jargon. But it cost me 350 Rand just to click buy. That's before any transactions actually occurred or whatever. And it's because Ethereum is so expensive to use. And I mean, using some of these decentralized apps right now isn't actually that difficult. So if you want to go out and maybe try use Uniswap, or Aave, or one of these other decentralized applications that exist, they really aren't too complicated. But what you'll see, and what I was kind of blown back by, is just how expensive Ethereum is and how slow Ethereum is right now as a result. So it becomes practically impossible to do much on it. And these Ethereum killers are kind of stepping up, and because Ethereum is supposed to be becoming a victim of its own success, these other platforms are stepping up and now becoming real contenders. And hence why you've seen a lot of investor funds run to these other sort of top tier smart contract cryptocurrencies.
Well, that's exciting stuff, because it means that there's still huge scope for people to make like overnight big money. But I like the idea that these are in your smart contract bundle and that you can have a much more long-term and much more sage approach to the whole thing. So I'm glad to hear that they're also represented in products that Revix offers. So you don't have to take a dangerous gamble yourself. You can rather take a calculated risk and buy yourself a piece of the action without having to go all in on some strange new coin that nobody knows about, because the next one could be like the Dogecoin, for example.
Exactly. I think that's been our approach since we've come on the show, since we launched RevX. But this idea of going out and finding this next big hit crypto. I mean, this last month it was Solana. The month before that there was Polkadot. Then you've got Cardano doing really well. I mean, you just can't keep up with the market. And I mean, we were talking about weird names, right? I mean, these are all weird and wonderful names. Yeah. But you can't keep up with how the space is developing.
Sean, how's that pawn coin doing that we spoke about a while ago? Have you been watching that one and how it's been received?
No, I haven't actually been watching that cryptocurrency. I think it clearly hasn't been doing too well. But those cryptos actually can just be used for payment purposes, right? So I mean, there's no real need for a pawn coin.
Yeah, but I mean, you're watching what's happening in the trends anyway. So if it was doing well, it would have come up in your radar at some point, right?
Oh yeah, no, I suppose. I mean, I don't deny or accept that. I mean, talking about pawn coin, it depends, I suppose, what you'd actually use it for. If you're using it for payment purposes, it's like, why wouldn't you just use like Litecoin or Bitcoin or something like that?
I'll tell you why, Sean. I'll tell you why. I'm sharing my financial profile with my wife or my girlfriend. They get a little nosy. I need to have that one on a separate profile so we don't have to have an awkward conversation. That's actually what's happening there.
I like that.
Your mistake there is that you shouldn't really share your financial portfolio with anyone. All you should do is leave a little black book somewhere with your passwords in it and let someone discover long after you're dead that you had a couple of 1,000 rand stashed away in crypto somewhere, and it's turned out that it was quite a good investment. A friend of mine, Sean, found a cryptocurrency investment that he'd made, 8 years ago in a little bit of Ethereum. And he cashed it out the other day because he needs to do renovations on his house. And it was quite a nice little windfall, something you didn't expect. So there's still people who are discovering little investments they made years ago and forgot about.
Exactly. But the weird thing is, some people have just discovered these investments or found them or completely forgot about them and whatever. Other people, I mean, we had a customer recently that he kind of inherited this, I suppose, from his grandfather. But it was exactly that, a little black book saying, listen, I've got a Trezor wallet, which is one of those little USB devices that you can access. Here's the private key to get access to it. And this guy got access to $2.8 million. And he essentially came to our platform saying, listen, we'd like to, my wife and myself would like to liquidate this. We naturally went through the KYC process, and now he's got that money. But it's so weird because that return that this individual's got, which was obviously absolutely insane, because this was, a couple of Bitcoin back in the day, probably not worth all that much. I mean, these were pretty old Bitcoin as well. They're obviously worth an insane amount of money today. And it's that approach of just saying, like, listen, look over the long term, look at what this guy's walking away with. And that's the investment opportunity here. Again, like what we've said before, Bitcoin, if this goes to $100,000, which is roughly, 2.1x from where it is today, that's cool. I mean, great. You got a good return.
Amazing.
It's a pretty high risk investment for that. The opportunity here is that this goes to $1 million, that this really becomes something that's far bigger than gold and becomes a reserve currency of the world. And if you start looking at
sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but there are lots of people out there who are still very skeptical about all of this. There was a guy who spoke about how he doesn't believe in any cryptocurrency. He says it's a huge bubble and it's going to burst. He's also one of the guys who predicted the 2008 crash, the property crash in the US. Do you take guys like that very seriously? I mean, you have to pay attention to them. He's not a moron, but you can't really listen to everybody because everyone has an opinion too. How do you decide who to listen to?
I don't think you can listen to, as you said, like anyone in the space, you can't listen to them, but you should be cognizant of what they're saying. So you can't go and say, listen, I'm going to assume your opinion. I mean, he is taking a punt at a position on crypto as an asset class, just like we're taking a punt on a position of and its success as an asset class. Is somebody blowing their nose?
Yeah, it's Gareth, because he might have COVID. Sorry, it's tragic. Yeah, thoughts and prayers.
Yeah. I'm curious because you hear these people and they suddenly pop out of the woodwork and they're like, oh, I wouldn't waste any money on cryptocurrency. Oh, stupid,
Yeah, I'll tell you, but I mean, they say that about stocks. Remember, there's always a stock market that's crashing or that's just about to crash. That I say that about every asset class, right? And I think crypto is more divisive, right? Because it's new, it's novel, there's a lot of hype around it. And, I always just say to people, like, take a step back. Like, if you don't even want to look at crypto as this investment class, Rather just take a step back and just look at the returns, look at the long-term returns that exist. And you don't have to put a ton of money into the space either, but not to get involved in something that's growing this quickly. That seems too emotional. And you don't obviously want to get emotions involved when it comes to investing. So take a small position, if it is something that's out of your comfort zone, or if you disagree with crypto, then don't invest. But then, be ready to, I think, sit back like a lot of people are sitting today and be like, shit, I wish I'd got involved 5 years ago, 7 years ago.
So MB says ADA, that's Cardano, right?
That's Cardano. And Cardano's been on an absolute tear.
Okay. Maybe you can also address this question. If Ethereum sucks, and I don't know that that's exactly what you said, but Ethereum may have there may be alternative ways of building on that blockchain technology and creating apps on that blockchain. There are better ways and faster ways, and there are different ways to Ethereum. But David's question is, if Ethereum sucks, why is it still pushing out the most transactions every day? It's easy to move on to a layer 2 solution on Optimism or Matic. Fees are reduced 10 times. What do you say to that, Sean? A very specific question.
Yeah, David, so I'm an Ethereum fanboy. Firstly, I want to see Ethereum succeed. And I think the layer 2 solutions do look really interesting. I mean, this is getting very technical, but essentially this is a way that you can scale the Ethereum blockchain without having any transactions occur exactly on the blockchain. Rather, you have little applications that sit on top of them, which sort of take the load off the network, sort of like building a motorway above the highway, if that's a way to describe it, or to sort of create an analogy. And I do think there's a lot of potential with that. The problem, though, is, Ethereum's got the first mover advantage. These other layer 2 solutions do look promising, but the other layer 1 solutions, looking, potentially at the likes of Cardano, Solana, they seem to be doing everything on that layer 1 without having to have other applications built on the top of it. So it'll be interesting to see where this goes.
I like the way that our questions on this show are becoming much more specific. Maybe you can address this one too. Robin, a very simple question, but something that I think a lot of people feel. Crypto is going to blow up. This is what Robin suggests. She thinks there's an inevitable future outcome, but I wish I had the money to invest. Now, you don't have to be a multimillionaire to invest in crypto. This is what we're trying to get people to understand, right, Sean?
Exactly. Yeah. You can get started with us for as little as 150 Rand right now.
Right.
And I mean, you can add a little bit on a monthly basis, and that's really how we believe you should be investing over the long term anyway. I think what's really important as well, just about considering crypto as an investable category, it's to say, listen, if you actually are, battling financially, be cognizant of where you are financially. So that's step 1. And then step 2 is, if you're in that position, you probably shouldn't go out and necessarily put your money in high risk investments. Like crypto can go down 20%, just like it can go up 20%. So, kind of just be aware of where you are. You don't want to go out and put yourself at risk and all the rest.
All right, cool. So just to recap, there's a lot going on in crypto at the moment because Sean and the people at Revix are constantly rebalancing portfolios to get you the best exposure to the best performing cryptocurrencies. This is probably the safest place for you to start. Of course, any of this stuff is not financial advice because we want to be clear that we're just exposing everybody who listens to this show to the opportunities that are available in the world of cryptocurrency. You don't have to jump in, but if you do, it doesn't have to be for a lot of money either. Go and check them out at revix.com. You can sign up for free. You just verify your ID. You add some funds, select the bundle of your choice, and watch it, play, run, go on the roller coaster. You'll have really, really exciting days where you think this is the best thing I've ever done, and you'll have days where you go, oh my God, what am I doing? But if you don't join in, you'll never have either of those feelings. And what's the point of feeling nothing? I think that's a good sales. That's a good sales pitch. All right.
The last point from my side, though, guys, is we have Polkadot launching this Friday. So Polkadot essentially is a cryptocurrency that connects all the cryptocurrencies. So the crypto party is like a whole bunch of guys that think they're too smart for one another at the moment, right? So Ethereum's blockchain doesn't talk to Bitcoin's blockchain. You want to send an Ethereum token to the Bitcoin network, you can't do that. Polkadot makes that happen. So this is a really interesting cryptocurrency with some real world use cases. So if you want to get involved with Polkadot, you can sign up for an account, and on Friday for 1 week, you're completely fee-free with us. So another promotion that we're running there. Yeah, and that's, you don't have to sign up with any promo code. You can literally just buy it on our platform and you won't be paying any fees.
Fantastic. They're always innovating over at Revix too. It's one of the reasons we like catching up with Sean. Thanks so much, dude. We'll speak to you next week.
Brilliant. Awesome, guys. Have a good one.
Awesome. Okay. That's Sean Sanders, and it is 7 o'clock.
This week on Auto Central. the Lamborghini Countach for me will always be a classic. I'm so excited that Lamborghini just released a sort of a homage or a reimagining of it. It's the first poster car for a lot of people. So I think it's always going to be a classic in a lot of people's hearts. And because I'm biased, of course, I have to include every single BMW in my list of future classics. I don't know what you think, what are classics to you, George?
Catch Auto Central, SA's #1 motoring podcast, every Monday at 9 a.m.
Suffer from collectivism, collectivity, collectionitis? Do you have an obsession with objects? Are you a fanatic, a devotee, an aficionado? Cliff Central dispenses a weekly dose of collectomania. Join me as I talk to compulsive collectors. Fascinating, intriguing, possibly a little weird. Collectomania, Mondays on the Gareth Cliff Show. Brought to you by SA Gold Coin Exchange and The Scoin Shop.
Yo, I put it like wow, this that sound. These oaks don't work hard like me, I hope they know by now.
That is the MKT show, Cliff Central Sport. You can find it on YouTube. Subscribe and get in there while Bolelo's got really interesting guests, and you don't miss out on any of them because you don't want to join up next week and go, oh, I missed that one. Oh, should have watched that live.
Yeah, I love Cooks. I should have been listening yesterday, and he's hilarious. He's the best, probably the best guy in sports content right now. He is doing it.
Yeah, it's also it's a fun show to watch. They don't just talk sport the way that you are used to hearing about sports. So just try it out. It's kind of there's a whole lot of interesting stuff that happens on the show that has nothing to do with sport a lot of the time, and there's a lot of ribbing of each other and some very offhand comments about where people went to school and kind of whether or not people are good enough. There's some pretty nasty shit that gets said between the guys as well. So that's also fun to watch if you like that kind of thing. And what guy doesn't? The only reason you know men actually enjoy each other's company is when they root to each other. Ain't that the truth?
Just a bunch of dudes.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's just talk about something that Lebang wants to address this morning. And it's me, Lebang, and Bulelo to look after you through the course of this morning. We're also going to be checking in with somebody who I really like talking to and I haven't had on the show for a while, even though I had lunch with him the other day, is that fantastic man, Oresti Patricios. He's the CEO of Ornico, and they are a leading thinking group on brands, consumers, media research, entrepreneurship. And he founded Ornico all the way back in 1984. And they've become a leading provider of reputation media, advertising, and brand research in South Africa. So if you want to know about how all of that lines up, Oresti's really your guy. And he'll be joining us at about 7:30 this morning. But your thing, Lebang, for this morning is about public displays of affection. And this is something you want to raise. It's going to be a little uncomfortable for some people.
Yeah, like disclaimer. So, like yesterday, I found myself just like making out with my partner so much, and I really got in the moment, and I just closed my eyes, and I just went in for the kiss, and then I opened my eyes, and like my kid was just like staring at me, like, and it was sort of like a blank. I don't know how to read how he was feeling. He wasn't like, "Ew, what are you doing?" or like, "Woo woo, go mom, go." Yeah, like he just kind of looked. And so I was like, I don't know, am I doing too much? Should I keep going? I want to keep going, but my kid is really. So I just kind of got me thinking about like PDA and like if there's a line that I should draw. And obviously there's a line that I should draw, but I had never seen my parents kiss, like never seen them holding hands. I've probably seen them hug, but like it wasn't a thing. And then I have like friends in high school who are obviously white, whose parents were just out there, just parking lots,
Really?
afternoon. It was hectic. Well, I don't know about you, but at St. Mary's in the parking lots, yay, it was just a thing. Like nobody would hold back. Hands being held, kisses, what, it was a thing. So I don't know, but I think I'm reinventing, something in society or within my family, like culturally, because I'm down for a kiss. I'm down for affection because I want my kids to see what love looks like from inside the household. So for me, it's a thing, but I know that like, growing up, it wasn't, and I wonder if maybe that like scarred me in a certain way. I don't know. Am I scarred?
Yeah. Listen, I don't really like too much of a public display of affection from anybody, but I do think it might be healthy in some situations. And I mean, first of all, I like the fact that you and your partner are able to just do this because, why the hell not? I suppose you're in your house, right?
Yes.
So it's not really a public. It's like an in-house display of affection, and your kids should know that you love each other. I think that's good, and they should know it's okay to do that. I'm not going to be one of those people who says, "Oh no, that's not the right example to set," because what the hell do I know? I have actually got no position on this. I don't really have a strong opinion either way. What do you think, Mbulelo?
It's so funny that Lewang's saying this because one of the things I wanted to talk about was on the weekend I was having coffee with a friend and I saw this couple who looked so happy together. I was like, that is so awesome. Like I'm just in a place in my life where I love seeing other people happy, and they weren't doing anything. They were just sitting there, young, I'd say 40s, like young, healthy couple, but they were just like interacting, and they were in my eye line as I was eating, and I just thought, I'm so happy for those people because without saying anything, they just looked so connected. So if I'm a grown adult and I feel like that, I can only imagine for your child is as they figure out what's actually happening, it'll become less and less what we imposing an adult lens on it. And I love what you're saying is love from within the house. I don't think that's like I think it can get to a situation where we're at restaurants, like, okay, we don't need that. But if you're saying it's you and your kids, that's awesome. I think that's an incredible thing. And I saw this couple on the weekend. I was like, oh my God, I don't want to be in a relationship, but I'm so happy for those people. They look so happy. And that's an awesome thing.
No, I like that. I'm kind of where you are. I think that, you don't want people to be having full sex next to you in a restaurant. That's obviously a little bit too far. But
not while I'm eating anyway. I mean,
like let me finish.
After the food,
I know you want to
finish,
but let's all finish.
I don't know if maybe because I was a kid or I was in my teens, I just saw it more because I was looking for it more. But I kind of feel like people have become less public about their displays of affection. I somehow get the feeling that people have become more resistant to that. Somehow when I was a kid, I remember seeing lots of teenagers and young couples kissing each other, holding hands, hugging each other, walking around. You kind of, maybe because I was more susceptible to it at that age and I would have noticed it more. To me, it feels like there's a lot less of it going on. So it's not just me.
I was driving in it's not Monte Casino, Maro's Arc the other day, maybe like 6 p.m. Teenagers holding hands, hugging. So trust me, that thing is still very, very real, especially amongst the teenagers. I just remember growing up, and sort of, I don't know, Mbulela, maybe you can help me here, but within like the Black community, it's not, you know, really encouraged almost to hold hands in public and to show this affection. I mean, we're still seeing it today, especially like around Valentine's Day. I remember there was a story of this kid, 20-year-old, who had this huge, massive teddy bear for his girlfriend for Valentine's Day. And, you know, people are laughing at him and saying, ha, 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 look at you, you know, showing your girl that you love her, ha, almost like they're making fun of him. It's almost this underlying thing that you can't express your love so openly. And that's why I'm saying, again, back in high school, in the parking lots at St. Mary's, I'd see white parents do this so openly, but never, ever see, ever a Black parent being caught dead doing any of that. Not a chance.
I mean, here's the point being made by Sindile. South Africa is very conservative, Black and white, so that could be part of the reason too. Display is the key word in this conversation, says Michael. And a lot of people also saying, I'm not one for a public display of affection, but it's lovely at home in front of the kids. I think parents 100%. Showing affection to their kids in public is also very cool, according to Robin. Yeah.
But, you know, not everybody maybe gets it. You know, we have an international listener base, and I'm realizing just how international Cliff Central is the more and more I'm here with some of the people who contact me. But, you know, in SA, and I'm not saying this is everyone, there is no all and every, but let me give you an example. You know, if you are liberal, let's say white, generally across the world is liberal, is like, you know, and I also, it was a bit of a shock for me, like turning 15, 16, you know, we start hanging out now, and you pitch, and like, who's that? On sitting on the couch and going to the fridge. Oh no, it's my girlfriend, Michelle. Wait, what do you mean? Your girlfriend's, for me, I was like, what do you mean your girlfriend's at your house with your parents
in your house? Number one. What?
But just so people understand, is not all, but mostly, I think most Black kids would have grown up where even this Valentine's Day thing, by the way, and I'm talking even as adults, Gareth, if you're not married, even at 40, right, 40 plus, is if you're not married or you're the guy or you've been introduced, if you're going to come and pick her up, you pick up at the gate. We don't want to see you. And that's not, I'm not exaggerating. You pick up at the gate. They don't want to see you. If you haven't been introduced as somebody with proper intentions to the household, largely, we don't want to know you. You are just somebody there on the street. You could be a drug dealer. We don't care until we know what your intentions are. You don't come inside and help yourself to a smoothie in the fridge. None of that.
Not the smoothie.
Well, that's. I think that's interesting because there are also cultural differences. There are religious families, and in some religious families, that's just not done. Also, there's some parents that, like there are a lot of kids who don't want to see their parents being too affectionate with each other. It makes them go, ew, you know. And it's usually just that rebellious teenage kind of phase that they're going through.
Are they not just taught that? Like, is that not just because we watch TV and TV tells us to think it's gross? When you look at it, do you actually feel grossed out? Or is it like, could it be like, oh, that's nice? You know, really, like, think about it. Have we just been taught to think that it's gross? Like, our natural instinct shouldn't think, ew. It should be, oh, that's cool. Or, you know,
here's a thing that no one's going to find you. Tracy brings this up. There is an elderly couple on my street. They're probably in their late 70s, early 80s. They hold hands while they walk. It's so sweet every single day. That's beautiful.
Come on.
I saw a Bali the other day, Rivonia Road, as I was walking to the shops up the road. And I see him quite often. I go to that shopping center quite often. Clockwork at the traffic lights. When there's like cars or whatever, holds his lady's hand and they walk. They fit, but they're elderly, 70 plus, I would say. But the guy is just like gentlemanly. Like I saw that dude, and every time I see him by the police station there at the top, it's like a super tricky crossing place there. Kind of just gets out in front of things, makes sure it's all good, gets his lady's hand, and they do their thing. And it is something awesome to see that still kind of lives, you know.
Yeah.
Well, Maki makes a good point. Most people don't show affection in front of their kids, but they quarrel openly. Yeah,
that's a good point.
Bars.
It's like those people who complain about anything sexual in a movie, even if it's just two people getting into bed together and you don't see anything more than that. Yeah, that's not acceptable for kids to watch, but they'll let them watch each other being murdered on TV. So that's a good point Mikey brings up. And Daniel says the opposite with Afrikaans parents. You can't go somewhere with a boy if the mom or the dad didn't first meet the person. Yeah.
Cool.
I remember,
That makes sense.
I remember some of that too. Mandia says, when my teenagers see me kissing my husband and roll their eyes, I ask them where they think they came from. They should be thankful. They should be thankful for what they see.
I love that, Mandia. Nice. I'm here for that. Yes.
But you see, there's such a range of opinions. Like Kushle says, there are different ways to show love. It doesn't have to be public, which is also a good point. You do whatever you're comfortable with. It's not anyone else's job to police you in public. I think that everybody knows what the socially acceptable lines are. Like you can't exactly be humping each other in the street. That's I think, most people go a little bit too far. But anything else is up to you. Just do your thing. I don't think you should have anyone else make your rules.
Now, having said that, is what say we of this? Is, for me, number one, whenever couples start to do the whole we love each other on social media thing, I always say that relationship's on the clock. If you love each other, why are you telling us? But what do we say about, because we work in this world, is that, people love to profit and I don't know, so sort of whatever you may call it from being public, right? But then the sharp side comes. I always say, if you're a girl and you're dating, I was talking to somebody, I will never have a photo of the person I'm dating on social media, because it's hard enough just to date each other. I don't want to date the internet. I don't want to know what the internet thinks of my girlfriend, what she looks like, it's hard enough to date each other. But what do we say of people when things go wrong and people keep commenting and then they say, oh, we need our space? Like, no, sorry, you don't get to play that game.
Exactly. Like the minute you show me and tell me who you're dating that openly, I'm a part of this relationship. It's no longer up to you. Like I'm there. So when you ask for space, you need to ask me if you can have space. And the answer is no. Because you didn't ask for space when you shoved it down my throat that you're dating this person. I think it's very tricky. Like there's a line that we need to, like a balance, where we need to get to, because obviously, number one, knowing your partner's love language. If you're dating somebody that wants that affirmation constantly from you or whatever, and they want you to jump on the roof and tell the world, do it, but just know what you're getting yourself into. If you're dating somebody that's just generally not interested in that stuff, lucky you. And, just finding that balance of just like, a little bit of celebration here and there, but don't shove it down our throats like, this is my man. I love my man this much. In daughter must this, blah, 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 blah. Because when shit hits the fan, you're going to be like, I need my privacy, y'all. You didn't need your privacy back then.
No. Yeah, you can't have it both ways. So you have to decide up front, is this going to be a relationship which I share with other people in terms of letting them in on it, dangerous stuff, or am I going to keep this separate? And I think that you have to, there's certain things about your life that you just don't need to share with everybody, especially if it's before you're married or even, like, frankly, during your marriage. There's some people who don't share pictures of their kids online. They do not post pictures of their children, either because they have safety and security concerns, which is valid these days because there are creeps on the internet. But it could also just be because if I share my child with you or with some unknown person on the internet, I'm kind of giving away a little bit of something special that we have together. And the same goes for a partner, romantic or otherwise. Having a private life, says Michael, is a rare and precious thing since social media got humanity to post pics of everything. That's a good point. As a man of color, says Dude 69, who's in a relationship with a white lady, I'm learning slowly about showing affection in public. I never used to do it because it was frowned upon by my loveless neighbors. Yeah, good for you. Good for you.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm learning certain things and just applying new things because we're trying to take away some of those cultural things that just don't work the day we live in. So I like that. Dude 69, I'm with you, bro.
Good for you. And I like the name, Dude 69. It's a good relationship. Lois says, interestingly, I found my friend's parents being affectionate was cute, but I actually felt awkward when seeing my parents kiss the 1 or 2 times that I saw it.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Again, everybody's got their kind of comfort zone around this stuff. So you do whatever you feel. And if anyone tries to tell you what to do, they might not be doing you a favor. Beth says, the thing is, children cannot consent to their images being shared. Even if they do consent, they don't understand the full ramifications. Well, Beth, to be fair, though, what parent doesn't have a ugly, awkward, or embarrassing picture of all of us when we were little, even if it's an actual photograph instead of one that's online? And those come out at like 21st birthdays. They come out at weddings. They pitch up on birthday cards. You know what I'm talking about. Parents have always taken embarrassing pictures of their children.
They love us.
Or pictures that we found embarrassing that you wouldn't put on the CV. So there's no change there. Gareth, where is Gord? Funnily enough, Sindile, I actually heard from Gord yesterday. Gord he's busy. And he promises he'll join us at some point on the show. He's just got to find a time. And Gord is still crazily disorganized, but he's looking amazing. He's lost tons of weight, and he's skateboarding and rollerblading and all kinds of shit at the moment. He's lost, I don't know, 50, 60 kilos. The guy's looking like a different person. So we've got to get him on the show.
Kilograms.
Yeah. I'm very proud of Gordo. He's looking good. Jeremy says Nirvana are getting sued for using a naked baby's picture on the album cover of Nevermind in the 90s. We need to be careful what we post about our kids. Yeah, but this guy is so full of shit because he's suing Nirvana now because he wants money, right, for a picture. He says his parents weren't paid properly, or they didn't give consent when he was a baby. The famous cover of that Nirvana album where the kid is swimming. It's an infant. And he's swimming and he's naked, and he's swimming for a dollar bill or whatever it is. And it's a famous album cover. And in those days, what they do is they airbrush in the money afterwards because they didn't have Photoshop. So you couldn't say they Photoshopped it in. They actually had to have an artist paint it in to make an album cover like that. But the cool thing about that album is that it was world famous. It was iconic. And the kid who has grown up subsequently from that picture, every 10 years after that album had an anniversary, he would post his own picture of him, like at age 10, at age 20, at age 30, where he would post he wouldn't be naked, but he'd post the same picture. So he was already profiting off of it. And he sold some of that to make himself some money. I think that this guy's just on the take. And I think it's kind of pathetic that he wants to sue Nirvana now. I mean, Kurt Cobain's not even around anymore. He wants to sue them now. It's like, please, man, you were fine with it for the last 30 years. Now you're going to claim that you were abused.
He's quite clearly just taking the piss here. He's just taking a chance and just trying to like milk whatever he can get out of this. Like I can see every year he's taken the same picture, just his growth. He's milking this. What if he just thanking them for giving him a purpose versus suing him? I mean, what a chance!
Dummy. So that's a good point right there. Jim says 90% of social media is utter bullshit, showing the world what you want them to see just to address your own insecurities. Take it all with a pinch of salt. Hey, you're speaking the truth.
In fairness, 90% of life is bullshit. I've always believed this. There's only 10% of anything you want to be around. That's a standard rule across everywhere. You only want to be at 10%. 10% of stuff is worth your time. Everywhere. Just apply that everywhere you are all the time. So,
just because it's Spring Day, I've got to mention this. We brought up Gord just now, who's been on the show a couple of times. He's kind of a member of the family. Another person who's a member of the family, and it's his birthday today, is Damon Calvari. It's his birthday. I think it could even be his 50th today.
Okay. Yeah.
So if you want to wish Damon a happy birthday today, I don't know if he's going to be grumpy about it, probably, but that's just for anybody who's interested. All right, just so you know, because people will ask. Anyway, this guy, this kid on the Nirvana Nevermind album, MB says he's a chop. He needs that $1 bill for being broke and not working for his own money. And a similar thing, Robin says he's tainted one of the best albums in the world. Yeah. And Michael says, speaking of Nirvana, did anyone see Nandi Bushel's debut drumming performance as a finale act on a recent Foo Fighters gig? That 12-year-old is an inspiration for all children. No, I didn't. But maybe I should know.
You know what I wish Dave Grohl would do? Like, he's made all of the money, right? I just wish he'd take this guy properly to the cleaners. Like Dave Grohl, I don't know Dave Grohl. I don't really follow grunge music, but I wish he'd take like $5 million that he like of his own money and just squeeze this guy out of life. Just like sue him, like just pile it on him.
You're a really mean person, Bolelo, and I know there's a part of all of us that wants that to happen. But you know what the scary thing is in the American legal system, in the American systems of justice, you could easily spend $5 million and a judge takes the side of this douchebag, and then you end up $5 million down and he wins like a $10 million or $20 million award. So not a good idea. I don't think, it's so unpredictable because the judges, they can completely vacillate between sticking to the rules and being a complete stickler for like how things should and must unfold. And then at the same time, they can be totally from left field and just give an award to somebody who really doesn't deserve it. I mean, you end up with some judge who had a difficult childhood or whatever, and she's like, give them $50 million. And poor old Dave Grohl's like, I started this action and I'm paying.
An so one of my mentors, an ex-employee tried to get him for about 2 million rand. He following, because he's not the guy you want to play with, this guy I'm talking about. And 15 years ago, this was 15 years ago, and we were chatting about it on the weekend. He has strung the guy out and bled him dry for 15 years.
That's amazing.
There's some people you don't want to play with.
Yeah.
Well, good for them. Just one quick comment here from Daniela, just to show again how diverse and different families are these days. Daniela says, I'm adopted, and I'm assuming Daniela's black here because she says, I'd always forget to tell dates that my family was white and Jewish. So it was always funny to see the looks of confusion when I introduced my mum to my boyfriend. Never assume a damn thing.
Yep.
A friend of mine, Daniel, did the same thing. So we were going on a snowboarding trip, and he's like, "Oh, my sister's coming," and we're going overseas. So it's like, okay, we'll meet you at the airport, blah 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 blah. And I'm like, I see him. So Daniel, white guy, pictures up, black chick over there. I'm like, okay, dude, you didn't tell me you had a girlfriend. I thought. It's like, no, this, but to him, it wasn't like a big thing, It's like, no, this is my sister. She's, and that's when I realized I am the biggest dickhead in the world.
That's when it hit you.
Yeah.
All right, listen, I'm very excited to welcome to the show, not for the first time, and certainly not for the last time, somebody who I had lunch with the other day, and it's always good to catch up with this man. He's got an amazing and infectious energy. He is a lover of all things business. He loves South Africa. He's an optimist. He's full of beans. He's got such a great energy. And his business, Ornico, was started in 1984. It's become a leading Pan-African provider of reputation, media, advertising, and brand research. And his name is Oresti Patricios. He's well known to people in South Africa, and he's well known to the show. Hey, Oresti, how are you?
Sure. What an introduction. Good, and you?
Yeah, nice to see you, man. I saw you the other day, and I thought, my God, why haven't we had you on the show? It's been a long time, and you guys are always publishing all kinds of interesting info. So I thought, let's do it now. Why are we wasting any time? First of all, how have you been through COVID, and what's the news? Give everybody an update.
Well, what's the news? COVID's COVID. Governments have been stupid the way they've actually done the lockdowns, and they've realized it anyway because there's, according to the numbers anyway, there's higher numbers now than it was in the first wave, and yet they haven't closed down as much. So hopefully it gets better as we go. So let's see what happens.
So, you mentioned COVID and government shutdowns, but has this changed the way that the customer has behaved? You guys are the best when it comes to analyzing the way people behave in the market. So how have customers changed their behavior?
Yeah. I think it definitely has changed, and I think in some areas it's definitely a really cool change because we have to evolve into this digital transformation. But we've got to divide up. It depends on the consumer, on the market. It depends who it is. So there's some people obviously that it hasn't really changed the way they work or operate, because a lot of people haven't got jobs in this country, and that becomes problematic. Right. So if we talk about the customer journey, let's talk about the people that have actually had jobs, because I think that's what has changed. And I suppose marketers try and promote to people who've got jobs anyway. So,
right.
So number one, if you just think about it, people used to wake up in the morning, get into the taxi or get into their car, drive to work. There used to be a lot of, you could check out the billboard advertising. All of a sudden you're stuck at home. You scrump out of bed. You don't get into your car, so you don't listen to the radio station any longer. But what's really cool is, from a podcasting perspective, from a YouTube perspective, people are now searching for content that they really want. So don't just get into the car, switch on to 5FM or 702 or whatever it is, and just numbly just go to work. I think people are a little bit more active in terms of and more discerning in terms of what they want to listen to and what they want to see. So the way marketers need to get to their consumers is, it needs to be a lot more discerning again.
Yeah, I mean, advertising is one thing we could talk about, because that has gone through the most fundamental changes in the last couple of years, before COVID even. And now this has kind of pushed things into fifth gear, because, you know, if you haven't thought about advertising differently in the last 10 years, and you were suddenly transported into the future on a time machine and you landed now, you wouldn't be able to make any difference in the world of advertising. In fact, people would think you were an alien. They'd be like, what are you talking about? You know, that stuff's so old. Nobody does that anymore. So Ornico have just launched this amazing project, which is called the Social Media Landscape Report. You guys do it regularly. But what were the high-level insights in this survey? And I'm thinking here, because we have so many people who listen who own their own businesses. We have so many people who listen to us who want to know what's going on in the market. And this is usually a nice dipstick to tell us a little bit about that. And what are the trends? That's what's exciting.
Yeah. So, yes, I think specifically for small businesses, I think this social media space, although getting more and more crowded at the end of the day, is an opportunity for small businesses really to kind of get into this market. Not only small businesses, obviously big businesses, and they can outspend smaller businesses. But I think the way the niches are, a small business will be able to identify its niche and be able to kind of get onto Facebook and advertise. I mean, I remember my wife had a small cafe in Greenside, and the only way she could actually advertise was actually on the social media. She couldn't get onto really radio. She couldn't get onto television.
Yeah, too expensive.
Too expensive, absolutely. And also, I think a lot of stuff is wasteful. Whereas when you're going onto social media, you decide, listen, I'm looking for, I don't know, at that time, hipsters. You know, and you can identify to hipsters.
Those, by the way, that's the first time anyone has ever said, I'm looking for hipsters. Those words have never been put together in the whole world.
Extremely hypothetical. We're just speaking in generalities here. Yeah, we're not actually talking about real people, obviously. Yeah.
No, absolutely not.
All right. What does the report say?
So, well, the report ultimately does. So it's a forward-looking report. So what we've done, we did a research to digital agencies, to digital departments of brands, etc. And we asked them, where are you looking to spend in the next year? And it was fascinating that 96% of brands are looking to spend on Facebook. And Facebook really is the biggest, from a social media perspective, where most people are spending. Twitter, then it comes Twitter, WhatsApp. We kind of included WhatsApp in a social media, although it's not really
it's hard to advertise there, right? I mean, you have to opt in, and there's a whole lot of other stuff. But can I be a little bit difficult before we even move on from Facebook? Because I don't know if that's because so many people who are media buyers in the agencies are old. And I'm not being disrespectful here. I'm not being disrespectful here, but I have never... I mean,
you are a little bit. It's the classic with all due respect.
They're experienced.
Okay, so forget it all. I'm not going to make excuses. Arrest me. Facebook is really for quite old people now. And I don't know anyone under the age of 50 who's ever seen a Facebook ad. And you're telling me 96% of the digital agencies are looking to spend their money on Facebook.
That is scary.
That sounds like a terrible decision. Are these people blind?
Yeah, it is kind of quite I thought you were going to say, Aldo Resti, can you please answer this question?
No, listen. No.
Obviously not.
There's a huge difference. You're the one who's bringing us the research. That's different. These people might be making the wrong decision, but that's not for you to comment on, right?
Okay, well, let me just tell you what Aldo Resti thinks. No, I think you're right, Gareth. I think, but not only because older people are on Facebook, but I think with these privacy issues, I think a lot of people are really concerned. And as far as I can see, we haven't done research in terms of how many people are actually actively on it. I mean, we looked at active users on Facebook, etc. But really, anecdotally, a lot of people are not really on Facebook like they used to anyway.
Right.
So they're kind of pulling off that platform, not only because they're bored with it, but also because the privacy issues have become a little bit of a mission. And it's not that Twitter hasn't got privacy issues. It doesn't mean that some of the other platforms don't. But I think it's really a big thing with Facebook at the end of the day.
Let's just do a quick around the room here, and if anyone who's listening to us wants to join in, this might be interesting too. Have you ever bought anything off of Facebook? Oresti, have you ever bought anything off of Facebook?
No, I haven't.
Lebang?
I have. I bought furniture off
I haven't.
Facebook. Yeah, I bought a furniture
Really?
and a microphone. You know what? To be honest with you,
Is it just me?
He says, sorry, I don't know if there's maybe a problem there. He says he's bought furniture and a microphone off of Facebook. So he's the only one out of the four of us who has, but there's something interesting.
I have to say though, I mean, we did a campaign for rental. We've got some property in Sandton that we're looking to rent. And we did it on all the social media platforms. And I must tell you though, surprisingly enough, I got many more leads from Facebook than I did on any of the other platforms. I must tell you, which is kind of quite surprising. But I also do think because the existing tenants within the building were also retweeting, reposting, etc. It could be that, I'm not sure, but.
Well, I mean, so just doing a quick whip around on the audience here. So Venant says he has many times bought on Facebook. Stuart says no, not on Facebook. Gushle and Daniela no. Kyle says only Facebook Marketplace. So obviously, I mean, this is what's interesting about the research, and you guys have such a database of people to ask that, and it's varied and it's diverse and it's interesting. You're going to get a lot of different responses, but it's important, obviously, that you collate these into something useful. So what are the key insights for businesses based on the social media landscape report that you guys put together? And who has access to all this data and what can they do with it?
Yeah. So I think because it's a forward-looking research, ultimately it's really for brands to kind of have a look and see what are the competitors doing, where do they think their competitors are going to be advertising in the next year, but also which are the major platforms. And the top platforms was actually Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, and WhatsApp. It came in that particular order. What was really interesting was a lot of brands tried things like Clubhouse. They tried Clubhouse. It wasn't effective at all. Could be a whole lot of reasons. I think there was a huge buzz and a huge storm, and everybody
I remember that.
on it. Not many people then stayed on it. The Telegram, again, they've tried some of the Telegram and it hasn't really worked. Snapchat in this country, very little. So I think they needed to concentrate Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Although I have to say things like TikTok are starting to really look quite good for specifically smaller brands, because they still got that opportunity to play in a space that there's not a lot of other people within that space, and you can get really, really creative. And it's such a creative space, TikTok, and you can think out the box, whereas most big brands are too scared to think out the box.
There's an interesting question here from Gareth, which I think I'm going to throw this in too. because many people are going to ask very specific things, and it seems like he's somebody who's got a very particular question. It's probably chasing client made up KPIs, key performance indicators, for their bonuses instead of what will be good for the brand. That happens a lot too, right? I mean, I see you clapping, so you agree with that, Oresti?
Oh, sure. You have no idea. I mean, we're part of an organization called AMEC. Now, what AMEC is a worldwide organization actually that talks about measurement and evaluation of communication. And they've created a model really in terms of how do you frame your success of your campaigns? Because why are you doing a campaign? You're really doing it to increase sales. Yeah. There's no real other reason why you're actually doing any marketing. Yes, you're doing marketing so that you can build your brand, but you're building your brand so that you can have more sales.
Sure.
A lot of the time, so what happens is a lot of the times KPIs that Gareth is talking about is against a financial value. Let's say it's ad spend, it could be advertising value equivalent, which is such a crazy non-number, or even for that matter, a growth in Twitter followers. So I had a whole huge growth in Twitter followers, but actually none of them are going to buy my brand. That's not a KPI. No. You know what I'm saying? So I agree fully with that, but it's an easy metric. So what happens is it's there because you can see I had 10 followers and now I've got 100 followers, and therefore my platform has grown. But no one's bought from me, So
they're measuring that they seem to be often the businesses themselves, and sometimes their agencies are measuring the wrong thing.
Yeah, a lot of the times it's measuring the wrong thing. What you need to do is really look at what impact has my campaign had at the end of the day. What are the objectives? Number one, what are the objectives of the company? So when they went to a strategy session and the C-suite decided this is the direction we're taking the business in, then you break those business objectives down into marketing objectives. How is the marketing department going to actually fulfill those objectives that the business actually that needs, that they're looking for? And from those objectives, create campaigns around those particular objectives and measure and evaluate your campaigns against those particular marketing objectives that will reach the business goals. And sometimes you're going to achieve it and sometimes you're not. But what's cool about it is if you are measuring against those objectives, if you're not, you can evaluate it and say, okay, these are the reasons why I went wrong. Let me adapt my campaigns. And that's what we try and sell a lot of the times, yeah.
So, Aldo Resti, I don't know if you can hear me now.
What did you say? Yes.
I just wanted to ask you, as we were talking, and Gareth had mentioned Facebook, and I know it almost feels like you got to be old to be on Facebook, but I would think then, and I'd like to hear your feedback, is I would want to be on Facebook if the old people are there, because old people have money. Like 25-year-olds don't have money, as cool as it is to be on Instagram. Or do you think young people tell their moms, so mommy will buy it? How does it work in your world? Like, okay, I don't want to talk to 25-years. I want the money person, but maybe I'm wrong.
Well, I'm not so sure. Okay, so let's look at it this way. So again, I'm part of PAMRA, which is Pan African Media Research Organization. It's a research organization across Africa. And what's really exciting is Africa's got young people. Europe has got old people. Old people are retiring. They want to get rid of all their gumph. At the end of the day, young people are moving into homes. They want to buy furniture. They want to buy a car. They want to dress up. They want to look cool. So actually, younger people are the ones that are actually buying. Older people are getting rid of stuff. So that's the one issue. But you have a point, and we've got to kind of look at it. And there's young people at 18 years old, and there's young people or kind of middle-aged people at 35 or 40 years old. The 35 or 40-year-old have got money at the end of the day. Well, some 35. I don't.
I'm 35. Yeah. I've known. I hear you.
Gareth, I heard that.
Mulelo, can I help you a bit there? We just recently did an interview for these Gen Next Awards that are coming up. And one of the companies that I spoke to was Yellowwood, who obviously specialize in research, etc. they literally told us facts. And the facts are, in South Africa, the people that have the actual decision-making power is the youth. They are the ones that influence the people with the money on how to buy and what to buy. And it's funny that all the advertising is like actually focused not on the youth. So I'm actually quite sad, Oresti, to hear that 90% of advertising is going into Facebook, where quite clearly Facebook is not directly where the youth are. We still have quite a way to go, but just to help you, Mbulelo, the reason is that, like, it's facts. The numbers show statistically.
Let's just be clear, like, Oresti is not the one who's sending that 96% of money to Facebook. He's just doing the research. He's just telling us what's happening.
Let's not shoot the messenger.
If you want to shoot the messenger, then you're doing the wrong thing here, because he's just looking at the research. So if they're spending on Facebook and on other social media platforms, what has that done to television, radio, outdoor advertising? What's happened to those people?
So can I just correct the Bang stuff? So it's 96% of their social media budget is going into Facebook, not the full budget.
Okay.
So because we remember we only did a social media landscape. We only looked at the social media at the end of the day.
Right.
So in terms of some of the other platforms, there's no doubt that the beginning of COVID, depending on and again, you got to, when you're marketing or when these big questions, sometimes you've got to break them down, because what has happened within television, let's say, for instance, well, within television, guys like the restaurant industry and the alcohol industry had to completely pull out of it, specifically at the beginning of COVID. But pharmaceutical companies and the online stores were actually advertising a hell of a lot more. So it just depends on, on who's advertising, which platform. And a lot of people at the beginning of COVID, everybody was just watching television. Not sure why, because all you heard was COVID, and occasionally COVID. So, so it was kind of crazy. And I think, people kind of flocked to television, and the television numbers went up. And if television numbers are going to go up, obviously the advertisers are going to follow. But I think since then, there's no doubt you can see there has been a drop-off in those television numbers. So there's no doubt that the spend will also start dropping off at the end of the day. And I think brands need to be a lot cleverer with their advertising, because they have got less money to actually put behind advertising. So they need to get clever. They need to look at different platforms, be creative, make sure that you're not where everybody else is, so that you can stand out in the crowd at the end of the day. But even more important than any of that is identify your target market. Who is that person that you're actually advertising to?
Right.
And identify what is the personality, who's that persona. And what's nice about the digital space is that you can identify smallest and smaller groups of people to actually advertise to.
Daniela says something that I think may be true in a number of circumstances, may not be true for all the agencies, but Daniela says agencies are so deeply out of touch with people, digital and traditional, and brands ultimately suffer.
Yeah.
I don't know if I read that properly, but yeah, I get the gist of it. I mean, I do think like the old agency model, Oresti, are you finding like that's delivering the goods like it used to in the old days?
Sure. Remember, I got into this industry in 1984, like you said. So you've kind of seen so many changes, and I think, and maybe I'm old, but I'm also an accountant, which maybe is problematic. So agencies are now run by accountants, and I think that's not cool, because you're only looking at the numbers. And I think Martin Sorrell is to blame for this. Sorry, I'm going to put that squarely into his into that space. But I mean, in the older in the 80s and 90s, it was kind of run by creatives, and I think agencies must be run by creatives. You need to take this brand, understand its values, understand where do you want to do it, and shoot it out the park by being really, really creative. at the end of the day. And yes, I'm painting all the agencies with the same brush, and that's not entirely true because there's some amazingly creative agencies out there. But I think the model has to change. There's no doubt about it. You got to look at it differently.
So there's so much of this data in your reports, and it must be difficult for you also to know what to extract, what is going to be useful, when and how. Do you have a whole lot of algorithms that you put into this? Do you have people who actually crunch the numbers manually? What's the way that you guys do this at Ornico? Because you are masters at it and you have been doing it for a very long time.
So we utilize both technology and human beings. I really do not believe technology can do it alone, because technology does make mistakes. So we have algorithms. Let's say an algorithm will pick up an ad, and the way it picks up an ad is you need a human being to identify the ad first. So you'll find this ad, you will then put the brand and all the details on it, and you create a fingerprint, you put it into the system, and every single time this ad appears, it will put it into your database.
Right.
The same thing happens with content. So you put certain keywords out, your algorithm picks up those keywords, but sometimes if you're looking for, let's say, APSA, it might give you absolutely. So you need a human being to ultimately look at it and say, this is not the right the right clip. We need to, So we utilize human beings from that perspective, and we do some automated reports. But again, automated reports are just high-level statistical kind of stuff. If you really want in-depth intellectual analysis, you really need human beings to be able to do that.
And Oresti, what's your advice to businesses when it comes to evaluating the measure of their marketing? I mean, a lot of people spend a huge amount of money on marketing, and they don't really get those returns. With all your years of experience and your business that does the analysis of this at a micro, macro, and every in-between level, what would you say is the best way for a business owner, whether it's a small business or a big one, to figure out whether it's working or not?
To decide what are your, as I said earlier, it's to decide what are your objectives. I think that's the absolute critical, and it's not just vanity numbers. Okay, what are your real objective for this particular campaign, and is it aligned to the business objectives? And once you do that, start measuring against those particular against that particular criteria. Absolutely understand who your target market is, who your segment is, and market to that particular segment, and change your advertising for that particular segment. If you've got and I'm going to use it very broadly because you can actually break it down even more than that. But if you're looking at 35-year-old in Bolelos, market to him. You know what I'm saying? If you're looking for 60-year-old Orestes, market to him, right. At the end of the day. But also, you can also, if you don't need to, you don't always have to do it only that way. Look at the tribes and hipsters. Tribe could be a tribe, not anymore, I know. But I'm saying, just look at likes. What do people do? What is their customer journey at the end of the day? And actually meet them where they actually are, and don't be intrusive. I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's also true, right? The hard sell approach is just not going to work anymore. The people don't like being sold things. They want to be involved in a conversation that could lead them to buy something, but they don't want it to be like too direct and too obvious. It's kind of patronizing, right? Yeah, and tell the story. And that's why I say the creatives are the ones that should lead it. A beautiful story. I mean, people love beautiful stories. It's been happening forever. You know what I'm saying? So let's just tell those beautiful stories about your brand and what they do,
Yeah.
Well, anything you want to throw in, Lebang? This is an area of expertise for you.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I guess, get your opinion, Oresti, about this transformation that we're seeing within advertising. So as you mentioned, and I love that you said that creative will be at the core and at the top of these agencies. We're seeing now the shift where, in as much as we want creatives to be at the core of these agencies, it's not happening. And it's kind of obvious when the wrong people are telling these stories. So how are we going to successfully get the right people in the positions to tell these stories so that the right people that we're targeting can purchase our products and buy these brands, et cetera, et cetera? I think there's like a a cloud currently happening in advertising, like a transformation where the audience can see right through the BS. Like we can see when, the wrong person is speaking. And I just want to know from your many, many years of experience, like what's your opinion on this? How can we get there faster? How can we get right people in these places?
Bang, at least you can't, not like Gareth who called me old. At least you just said lots of experience. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. No, so in actual fact, I don't think it's ever changed. Even if you look at, if you're going to the 80s, I mean, a lot of people were advertising to the wrong to the wrong people. I think what you need to do is kind of really understand, and you can see the BS consistently, and there's a lot of BS in it. So firstly, everything must be data-driven, because if you can get insights into a particular target market, into a segment, into a lifestyle, then you can start advertising, understand people's minds, what's going between those two ears at the end of the day, and what are their likes, what are their dislikes, and actually play to those emotional filters that human beings are always open to. You know what I'm saying? As soon as you press those emotional buttons, people aspire to it, at the end of the day, and you need to tell those beautiful stories and get the right people to tell those stories at the end of the day. But I think the right people, but also with the right data, because sometimes you miss those nuances, and you need those nuances in it, and you need both the emotional side of it and the data side of it to actually get the right mix at the end of the day.
Well, Rusty, we could talk to you all day, and I wouldn't run out of things to talk to you about. So it's good to have you on the show. But if people want to find out more, and perhaps for businesses that really want to do a deep dive into what's going on, look at these reports, they can find out more by talking to you guys at Ornico, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We're always open to debate it and discuss it, and
Brilliant.
And guide them a lot of that time through this measurement stuff, because I think that's what's really critical, what will get advertising done much better at the end of the day.
Huge. I mean, and there's so much to know. There's no limit to the amount of information that you can get into if you're really interested. So thanks, Oresti. Always good to catch up with you. And thanks for answering all of our questions and for putting up with how rude Lebang and Bulelo were to you this morning.
No, I know. Cheers, guys. Right. Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you, Oresti. Oresti Patricius from Ornico. So it's always good to check in with him. And it's been a while since we last did that. So why the hell not? I also have to wrap it up for this morning. He's terrific. He's really fun. We have to wrap it up for this morning because we're already at 8 o'clock, and we will see you tomorrow bright and early. Have an excellent spring day. Get out there into the sun. Celebrate that everything is bursting into bloom. The birds are chirping, and that life is
are out.
Good.
Let's see them fly.
All right, everybody. See you tomorrow.